I might have to say that again because I wasn't recording the pre-show stuff.
Will Wheaton.
You know what? Now that I'm looking at this, I think you need the original Blockbuster game to play Blockbuster Returns.
I heard Blockbuster was a fun game. Surprisingly.
Well, there was a bunch of board games. I don't know if Target is clearancing out to make room for all the other new board games. But there's a bunch of board games on clearance. So like this one is $3. The not the Castle Rush. What was the one that you recommended?
Yeah, they were out of it in my store.
Last Defense?
Yeah, they were out of it.
Last Defense. It was like $9.
I bought another copy for $5.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
You need me to get you a copy, Wes?
Maybe, if it's there. I'll trade you. I got something to mail to you, too. I found your bag of stickers and decals or whatever. I think it was yours.
Oh yeah. My daughter's decals.
Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
All right,
The two that I left there, I left on purpose.
I figure that he left an entire baggie with like hundreds of...
Yeah. You know, I saw it and I forgot to remind her to take it. Yeah, it looks like the Lost Defense is back up to regular price on Amazon. So the only chance to get it cheaper is still finding a Target that has it on clearance.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, we're alive.
Sweet.
Orange. Let me. Where? Oh. Yeah, that works.
Hey, Domicile Artisan, how's it going, buddy? How are you?
I love it when we have people in the chat before we officially start. You get to see a little bit of the pre-show.
See how organized
See how
we
some
are?
of the sauce is made. Yep.
They don't want to taste it ever again.
It's like, we're live! And then dead silence. Okay, so
That's
apparently
true.
how this game is played is that there's sections. There are 6 acts. And no. Sorry, there are 3 acts, and you try to win 1 card from each genre of movies.
Is it like a trivia thing?
So, it's not quite trivia. So there are 3 categories. You have to act it, quote it, or describe it in 1 word. And so there are all these cards with different movie titles on them, and you try to either act it, quote it, or describe it in 1 word.
Is this the Blockbuster game?
Yeah, this is the Blockbuster game. I
Sounds
don't know
fun.
how different this is from the original Blockbuster game. It's kind of funny. It's like a VHS tape. But it looks fun. And then there are head-to-head cards to break ties that have like competitions on them, like name all the movies you can beginning with M.
What?
And whoever can name the most movies beginning with M can go. So I think it would be fun. It would be interesting trying to figure out how to do this on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Because basically, I would have to MC it, and you two would be playing against each other, right? No. To be able to like show the card without anybody else looking. Can you even read that? Hold on. Can't even read it.
Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad.
Oh, okay. You can't read it.
Barely.
All right. I just can't hold it up to it
Yeah.
up close to the camera. So, superheroes, not for the kids, heartwarming, and head to head. Oh. Remakes and reboots. Oh, there's another category. Remakes and reboots. So, whenever we want to try this out, I got it.
So are we talking about board games? Games that we like, games that have worked well with the kids, games that have not worked well with the kids, things you still want to try to play that you have not played yet. Maybe even get recommendations from the chat.
Yeah. Stuff we played as a kid. Did you say that?
No, but I like that too.
Board games I played as a kid.
Anybody play Fireball Island or Mousetrap or?
Mousetrap.
Did anybody ever play? Let's just save that. Let's just save it.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm hitting a chord then that'll get us talking. All right. Give me like 2 seconds. I'll be ready when you guys are.
Oh. Jacob, thank you for pointing that out. You were so right, sir.
I've crossed over.
Yeah, across the streams.
I'm now Geeksmither.
It's the Making Geeks What If. What if we took over the other person's channel for a video?
Kind of like that.
I have a feeling that
That's
it
a
would
great
probably just
idea.
turn into... It is, but I have a feeling it would just turn into parody. Because I don't think I could do anything representative in the same way of either one of your channels. Like if I try to do something Zelda or Ninjago, it would be completely satire because I don't really know much about either property. I could do some...
You don't have to.
Or, controlling something in a weird or unorthodox way for Wes's channel. Maybe I could do that.
That's not that hard.
Control my prosthetic with a Guitar Hero controller.
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
So you play Power Pad games or something?
Just picking up the leg and hitting it down like this.
Triple jumping. Bam, bam, and throw it across the room. I'd watch that.
Jacob, I wish Vincent had the recording after the show on Monday so you could have heard all the nice stuff that was said about you. But I guess it'll just be lost to the ether, unfortunately.
When you say you're talking about Wes, right?
No, Jacob. Jacob's in the chat.
Oh, well, I wasn't sure who you were talking to.
I said Jacob, right?
You know what? You
I missed
did.
that part. Oh, I got
Yeah,
it. I got it.
Yeah, my brain didn't connect
Yep.
something there.
Yeah.
Should we separate this too into like board games versus card games or just kind of go for it?
Tabletop games.
Games.
Non-digital games.
Unplugged games.
Ooh, games.
Unplugged games. There you go. Unplugged games. I'm ready when you are.
Ready.
We're a little late.
Yep, I think I'm ready, Chip.
My bad.
You set?
I'm set.
You have passed go. You're collecting $200, and you are also listening to the Making Geeks podcast. It's the podcast for makers, families, and geeks.
I'd rather have 200
gentlemen-
rupees. I just derailed that whole thing. Sorry. Sorry, I'll show
Try to
you.
remember.
We can
Try to remember
we
the
can
word
go with
rupees.
that.
Do it again. Say rupees.
Yeah, okay.
No, let's just go. We're completely on brand with that. So
What would it be without the awkward silence? Hey guys, how's it going?
doing pretty good. Anything new going on this week?
On Monday, I don't know how many people saw yesterday me posting on my Instagram stories, but on Monday I was on the Because We Make podcast with Vincent Ferrari and Ethan Carter, and it was a much different experience. Hosting a podcast is one thing; being a guest on a podcast, I forgot what an experience that is. And it was
You've
it was
been
pretty
a guest
fun.
a couple times though.
Yeah, no, on this podcast.
Yeah.
So, going because I know like the flow and the format and the tone and all this other kind of stuff of this podcast, and their podcast is like way different. And they I do have to say they flow really well together in terms of like conversation and stuff like that. It's easier because it's just two of them. But it was pretty fun. Talking about projects. I plugged our podcast a couple times. They let me do that. They're like, "Yeah, plug away." I'm like, "Well, on the Making Geeks podcast."
Been hard not to.
Yeah. Well, because you can't talk about what we do without talking about this, because this is like integral to what we do. So it was a good segue for me to be a guest on their show while at the same time talking about this little podcast we got going on.
Sweet.
So
I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, but I plan to. Hopefully sometime this week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And for anybody out there, it's called the Because We Make podcast. It's their most recent episode called Once Upon a Podcast. Because I'm on it. And go check it out. What do you guys
You,
been up
Wes?
to?
Nothing too much. What did I do? Nothing out of the ordinary. I forgot to mention last week that I introduced the kids to Ghostbusters. The Ghostbusters
OG?
movie. The OG first one, yeah. They had... I guess I'm sort of doing the geek out a little bit early, but the Ghostbusters Afterlife trailer, the full one, I guess, dropped. And I wanted to show them that, but I realized, hey, they haven't even seen the originals, so how could I do that? How can I properly raise my kid and have them watch a movie out of chronological order? I can't do such a thing. So I asked myself, are they ready for Ghostbusters? And I hadn't seen it in a long time myself, I'm ashamed to say. And after realizing that, Grant, he had seen like the first two Lord of the Rings movies, and those are, somewhat intense and scary at times, with creatures being birthed out of the sludge of the ground and Isengard and all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, it can't be possibly as bad as that. And then, they watch Pirates of the Caribbean where, they're turning into dead people when the moonlight or whatever shines on them. And I'm like, that's pretty much Ghostbusters, right? It can't be worse than that. And it was not too bad. They actually loved it. They were apprehensive about going into it, thinking it was going to be scary, but of course they found it more funny than scary, which is great, and they enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as well, and so now they're interested in watching the second one, and I'm just trying to get them on board before the third one comes out, so we could all enjoy it together as it should be. So I did forget though that Dan Aykroyd had a sensual dream about a ghost. I completely forgot
Is it in that one?
Yeah.
I forgot if it was that one or the second one.
It has no
The first one.
relevance. It can be completely cut and doesn't affect anything. It's part of like this montage sequence. And yeah, I'm like,
have
whoa.
you seen the behind the scenes of the Ghostbusters?
Nope.
You need to, like, if not, listen to the director's commentary or watch the behind the scenes of Ghostbusters. There was an entire sequence built around that one scene, and they cut everything else except for that one scene, which makes absolutely no sense putting it in that movie because it doesn't flow with anything else.
It doesn't.
And when you got kids, you're like,
well, I was sort of like, I was looking back at my kids like throughout the corner of my eye, and they were just like completely oblivious, you know. And they're like, "Oh, that's funny." He's like, she's tickling him or something, or I don't know what it is. Like, who knows?
That's not entirely wrong.
It's not entirely wrong. No. I don't know. They didn't really ask for explanation, and I didn't give them any, so just sailed right by that, you know. And they recognized Rick Moranis from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. We've seen the first couple of those, so they had like a reference point. They're like, "Oh, I like that guy. He's cool, yeah." Da, da, da. And so, and I think I realized that my wife has never. I think she realized she never saw the first Ghostbusters because she said she didn't remember a single part of it, and she remembered Slimer being in it a lot more. I'm like, "Oh, you probably watched the second one then, and not the first one," and so it was completely new to her. And she didn't have a glowing review of it. She was a little more critical, like I guess she was expecting like just ghosts to be busted, not like demons and spirits and like other paranormal kind of things, which that's a little super nitpicky, I would say. Being possessed by a spirit is a spirit, as a ghost is a spirit. I don't know. It's all the same to me, but yeah, she said it was weird.
Just tell her it was a marketing decision.
Yeah, that's right. Although watching it back, I was sort of a little more critical of different parts because we were like trained to be either intentionally or not like critical of like, you know, all the Marvel movies, like looking at all the scenes. Do the things make sense? Is it flowing really well? Blah, blah, all that stuff. And I am not sure that they introduced the Stay Puft like character that well because there was a scene where they showed the bag on a counter and it said like Stay Puft. It looked obviously like someone hand wrote it on there. It wasn't like a actual produced like product, you know. And they didn't. I don't think it was like clear enough to make that reference. And then also when Dan Aykroyd's like talking about how he cleared his mind and that's all he could think of was the most innocent thing from his childhood, it's like overlaid with a lot of other noise and things like from that scene, so it was kind of hard to like hear the language if you don't know what he was talking about and know the words, like to actually pick up on what he was saying to get the reference. Not that a 7-year-old needs to understand where a giant marshmallow creature came from. I guess that's fine. But it was just kind of interesting to look at it through like a modern lens, too.
Yeah, we kind of have to watch the movies from the 80s with a different kind of
yes.
POV. Yeah. Anyways, I put out a new video today, one that I've been working on for a long time, and it was a lot bigger of a task than I realized. And it was a review video of my Glowforge. It's kind of like a marker of having being an owner of the machine for about 6 months. I figure that's enough time to effectively put it through its paces and do hopefully what I comes across as an honest and unbiased review without trying to be too snarky or too mean about it. So it's doing fairly well compared to my last couple of videos. So I'm hoping that it does well view-wise. And I've gotten some pretty good feedback from it so far.
You know, since you can have feedback now on the video, which is... I got first comment. I got first. I'm just saying.
Yep.
First.
Yep.
Like, boo, ha ha ha, Donovan. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm not usually one to comment first, but because it's such a rare activity on your channel, I had to. I actually commented once before that with something else, and I changed it to first, or I deleted it and posted it again. So I was like
Oh,
second.
is that
Oh,
why I said
is that why it
edited?
happened? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like,
uh-huh. Yeah, I'm like,
How do you
no,
edit
saying first
first?
right now is like appropriate. I'm gonna say first.
I hope it doesn't lose its luster,
What, having comments back on your video? I don't
or
think so.
Wes trying to be first.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, because then it becomes a game. And that could be part of the whole experience of putting out a new video.
Should be a Patreon reward for any of my patrons to get first on a comments on a video. They get something special.
It is. It's funny. Like, when we did the 30 and 30, I I had people fighting to be the first comment, and it was pretty awesome to watch. I was here first. No, I was here first. So yeah, being able to fight over first is fun, or at least make it fun. Hashtag notification squad, because then you know that they have notifications turned on, so they get updated whenever you put a new video out.
Yep.
So, in preparation for the show today, we were talking about ideas for topics, and this is episode 225 already. And when you get to around this many episodes in a podcast, you start struggling for topics sometimes. Otherwise, you just kind of keep hitting the same notes. And then we realized we've actually never had a full episode talking about board games. And I think that the three of us, and hopefully quite a few out there, enjoy board games. To some degree, and especially being families, I think it's kind of a really common family activity. So we thought we'd talk about board games a little bit,
And card games.
and card games.
Non-digital games.
Games
Yeah,
unplugged.
I think we came unplugged games
Unplugged
is
games.
kind of
Unplugged
unplugged
games.
games. So when I say board games,
Yeah.
I intend to kind of be all inclusive into those types of games. I want to do like a secondary lead into this also. Several years ago, and a lot of you might already be familiar with this, there was a YouTube channel called Tabletop that was hosted by Will Wheaton. And I remember watching that show fairly religiously and being introduced to all these different games I didn't even know existed. I think that at one time, and it still might even be that way, they were usually classified as something called like designer board games. And I watched the episodes mainly for entertainment, hopefully getting in the hopes of getting around to playing them some point. And that point came about a year and a half ago when COVID hit. And I knew that I was going to be at home more with the family and trying to keep spirits up. And I didn't want everybody to be just watching TV or in front of devices, because that's kind of the opposite of what I wanted to foster at my house. So I started investing in a lot of those board games that I was watching online. And so we have a modest collection now, and the enjoyment and the family togetherness has really kind of escalated since we've started doing that. So that's kind of my lead into this, and curious about the two of you and your families and what you guys like to play. We don't have to start right at that point, but I mean,
Yeah. Well, one of the first games I introduced to Samantha that I can recall, and somewhat on purpose with our timing, was Monopoly, which is a very divisive game anyways. But she was having some struggles in like some of her earlier grades with like just adding numbers like on the fly and like doing math on the fly. And so that's a fantastic, like, you give the kid the ability to be the banker and they get good fast. Like I was very impressed, and like it actually had like a positive impact on her schoolwork, which is a subject for a different night. But yeah, when you're playing that game right, like according to the rules, and not doing those weird additions and modifications that we have all probably grown up with throughout the years. I know I have, that make the game like drag on for way longer than it was even designed to. It can be kind of fun. But other games that I've since introduced to the kids, Stratego is one of my favorites growing up that I loved playing. Even just simple chess. I have fond memories of my uncle teaching me both of those games, Stratego and chess, and having impacts on some of my interest of strategy games and stuff, growing up and as an adult. Yeah, I have like a nostalgic feeling for a lot of games as a kid. Like playing Canasta is another like old school card game that I play with some of my family. And now we've branched into Munchkin and the Minecraft board game, which is fantastic, by the way. Even if you don't like Minecraft, it's really good.
Really?
Yeah, it's like if you like Minecraft, it's even like another layer of awesome on top of it. But it's got like mining mechanics. Like if you, I actually, so I went to school for simulation and game development, and we had classes of that's what I have a degree in. And so we had classes before we got to do any game development, like on a computer, we would actually have to do like board game development. So you learn about like game mechanics and things and get to appreciate like from a designer perspective, like how balanced things are and like just how games, like how the flow of them work and stuff like that. And Minecraft is like a fantastically designed board game. I can't recommend enough because it like even like Grant, who at the time was like 5 when he first started playing it, his strategy of attack everything and not try to build anything seemed crazy, but he would come in second place like pretty reliably. It just like getting all the collecting as many weapons off the board and like attacking enemies, and he would do better than I would have expected. Um, but that's a fun one. I mentioned Munchkin. There's a game that I play a lot, which I had brought up, but I think I've since closed it, called Legendary. There's a Marvel variant of it. It's a card, a deck building game. It's really fun. I highly recommend that. There's lots of expansions, but the base game is a lot of fun. You have all your superhero, Avengers characters that have abilities and stuff and cards that you kind of collect and battle all the different villains, especially if you get as many expansions as my buddy that's local to me has gotten throughout the years. Like every birthday that comes around or Christmas, I'm like, oh, I know what I can get him. Get him an expansion for this game. It's fantastic. It's like playing a comic book, and the design of how they have everything work together and how they modify the way the game works based on who the villain is. It's like super amazing. Like you can fight Galactus in the game, and like there's certain board spaces that you like fight all the enemies on, right? All the different villains and henchmen, and you have like the sewers and the city streets and the rooftops and different. There's like 5 different ones, and as you're playing through the game, things happen where the villain does something to affect everybody, and Galactus, he basically eats a space every time. So by the time you have basically rush against him eating the world, which is just like Galactus. It's just fantastic the way that they can kind of mix in like the Marvel lore with the game mechanics. It's very highly recommended. So it's called Marvel Legendary. And you guys played any of those?
Oh, that's cool. No,
No?
I have not. And then, like, I'm trying to write all these down
Yeah.
as you're talking about them. It's
Well,
like,
we'll put up a
yay,
list
another
somewhere. I think that might be helpful, especially for an episode like this.
If you guys stayed
we'll-
for
we'll
another
find a
couple
spot.
days, we definitely would have played it. But the buddy of mine that had it was actually in Florida when you guys visited, so I didn't have access to it. But otherwise, there's not like a weekend that went by for a long time that him and I didn't play that game.
And I liked games growing up. Board games. I don't know if I would say I loved board games growing up, because a lot of the board games back then were, I mean, they were fun, but there wasn't like a huge variety. At least it didn't seem that way, because you had like Monopoly and Risk, and Life, Shoots and Ladders, like Domicidal Artisan is saying in the comments, Pictionary, Trivial Pursuit, and then all the card games like Go Fish, Five Crowns, Uno. But like I remember really enjoying playing board games, but I didn't play them enough to like fall in love with them, if that makes sense. Whereas nowadays, oh my gosh, it's almost overwhelming how many like card games and board games and deck builder games and picture games, and there's so much. It is so
Yeah.
cool.
There's like a
And one of
renaissance,
the-
yeah.
I know, and one of the things that I really loved about tabletop was since there were so many games, there was decision paralysis, and you're like, I don't know if I want to spend $60 on a board game and not like it. So having tabletop where they go and they play through the games and you get to see like how it's played, the mechanics of it, how it all unfolds before you buy it, I thought that was a fantastic show to watch. I enjoyed watching that one too. But now that I'm a dad, oh my gosh, I had to clear a shelf. I had to clear another shelf in my bookshelf today because I went to Target and I got a couple more board games. I got the one that Sean has recommended, which is, oh shoot, not Castle Crashers.
The Last Defense.
Last Defense. Okay, Last Defense. And then I also picked up Blockbuster Returns, which is like a movie trivia game that we may or may not have to play on this podcast. When we were at Wes's in North Carolina, we went to a board game store and I picked up some board games there and brought them home. I got Codebreakers? Not Codebreakers. What is it called?
Codenames.
Codenames.
So good.
Codenames.
Which Sean and I dominated. We didn't lose a single time, if I recall. And we were like so many Hail Marys that we were like, yes! It was amazing.
Yeah, so I got the Harry Potter version of that because I noticed that there is definitely a theme in our house that a lot of the variant of games tends to be Harry Potter games. So we have like Harry Potter this, Harry Potter that, Harry Potter Codenames.
I heard that the theme versions of Codenames is really hard. Actually, Wes, you might have been telling me that.
Yeah, the Disney one
how
sounds
abstract it
easy.
is.
Very difficult because you know such limited information about like the obscure character. It's even less information to know to link to some other random thing. Like I don't know, how do you like mix like what was the thing whatchamacallit? What is the thing Ariel called a fork? There's like a name for it. What is it?
Thingamajig?
Dingle Hopper. Or
Dingle
something.
hopper. Yeah, right. So link the fork image with the dingle hopper as the word on the back with like I don't know, like sword in the stone sword or something. Or that's a little easy because you're holding it, but like it's just like completely random obscure things like Pluto's tail and then a dingle hopper. Like how the hell do you link those things together? I don't know. Like let alone like multiple. Those are just two things. Like you mix in a meatball from Spaghetti and the Tramp. That might be Spaghetti and the Tramp. Lady and the Tramp. That might be pretty good with Dingle Hopper. But I don't know. It's surprisingly hard. Yeah.
Yeah. But my kids are still pretty young, and so there's not, at least from what I found, there's not a lot of games that they can understand well enough, who's simple enough for them to be able to enjoy playing. There are a couple games that we love playing in our house. One is Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza, which is a card game, a very simple, fast-paced and fun card game that requires like hand movements and gestures and slapping the cards as you're trying to get rid of all of your cards. That one is really fun for families of little kids or heck, even adults if you are okay getting into it. Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza. Throw Burrito is another one that we really enjoy. Maybe a bit too much because it requires violence. But now they have variants of that too, like Throw Burrito
Avocado.
Ultimate, which the burritos are like 6 feet tall, and you play it in the backyard and you like chuck it at each other, which I'm sure my kids would love, but they would probably destroy that game. And then Throw Avocado. I just saw that at Target tonight. So there are so many games that like I'm so excited to play with my kids when they get older, but they're not quite at that age yet to be able to do like Hogwarts Battle. My wife and I really like Hogwarts Battle. We got all the expansion packs for that. Mm-hmm. I have Once Upon a Time, which is a storytelling based card game, and I have all the expansion packs for that. We have yet to open it because it's a little too advanced for little kids. So I'm just waiting till they get older that we can play all of these games that I'm hoarding and collecting on my bookshelves.
There's a Back to the Future game that's on clearance at my Target too, which Catherine got mad about because she bought it full price, like for Father's Day, which I played and it's really good. So I feel like Back to the Future, I'd recommend that one.
Is it really good? Because I saw that on clearance too.
It's like $8 at Target.
Yeah, it's worth it.
And there was a Godzilla game that had like a city and a bunch of Godzillas. There's just so many. Although I do have to say, some new variants of the old games that they've come up with, I have enjoyed a lot. Risk was a game that I really liked playing with friends when I was younger, but it never changes. And if you got somebody who like, camps in Madagascar the entire game and ends up winning everything, it it gets boring to play, over and over. But they have a new version of Risk called Risk Extreme or Risk Ultimate. I don't know what title it is, but what happens is that each round you have a pack of cards and you select one of the cards and you literally like destroy all the other cards. So the decisions you make while you play the game permanently affect how that game is played, and because there's different options for each level, you can entirely change the game in a plethora of different ways. And I went to a martial arts retreat and we played that game for like 3 days straight. It was so fun. It was so fun. And it was cool because it was like a new twist on something that everybody was familiar with. Clue is another one. Clue is a really good game, but they have come up with variants of Clue that have put twists on the classic methodology of playing the game that just make it so much more fun. I really enjoy them.
Growing up, I played a lot of the same board games that you guys already mentioned, whether it was Sorry, Trouble, Monopoly, Life, Connect Four, Battleship, all the basics that most of us grew up playing. I think primarily because of TV commercials and marketing. Those are the ones that were pushed the most. We could probably name 20 or 30 games off the top of our
Crossfire.
heads.
Remember the ad? Crossfire.
Yeah, got Crossfire.
Oh man.
Mousetrap, Hungry Hungry Hippo. We could just keep naming games. But I don't think most of those games that I played when I was a kid were really long lasting. They all had a very short shelf life in my house. Um, and then my parents weren't really much into, and the rest of my family, other than my brothers, weren't really much into those types of games. We played mainly card games growing up because that was always seemed to be more mature in my family. My family, had a bunch of card sharks, playing poker, winning tournaments, stuff like that. But the one that probably changed a lot in my house, especially for me and my brothers, because my brothers were 10 and 13 years younger than me, was when we started playing Magic the Gathering, which, is a, collectible card game, but still a card game nonetheless. And we'd play for 3 or 4 hours every weekend. And that was kind of a way for us, my brothers and I, since we were such different ages, to kind of bond and do something together. And, some of our best memories as a kid was playing that. And I've introduced that to my kids as well, and they like it. We don't play it that often, but that's mainly because we have so many choices and things to play right now. And it's interesting, like in my household too. We started off with Monopoly and Life and some of those basic ones, Battleship. But my wife doesn't really care for those as much, so those
The
also had a short.
strategy-based ones.
Um, well, a lot of things we play are strategy based either way. It's not the strategy that she doesn't like. It's just the when we have so much choice now and better choices, I don't think some of those original games are as good as we once thought they were. There's a lot of value in Monopoly. There's a lot of lessons to be taught in Monopoly, but it's not a game that we really care to go back to. In Life, I've never really cared for Life. I think Life is a
I
boring
agree.
game.
I absolutely agree and could not agree more.
And then we were playing
abysmal.
Sorry for a while with the kids because Sorry is a really really basic game. It's simple accounting. But once again, my wife got really bored with that, so it didn't last very long.
Super boring.
And then I started getting us into some of the more designer-based games that we were talking about earlier on. And for instance, my wife loves the game. Actually, the whole family loves the game Quirkle. And Quirkle is really nothing more than a version of dominoes, in a sense. It's these wooden blocks that are painted black and they have different symbols and colors on them. And you line them up either as a set or by color, if I can remember off the top of my head. And we will play that over and over and over again. And it's one of the few games even though my kids are fairly close in age, everybody has like a little bit different ability. Where I think everybody has an equal chance of coming out on top because it's partially luck of the draw, but there's also some strategy things too. And my daughter is become really really proficient at it, and she'll just smash us in a game, and I love it. So that's one of the ones that we've been playing a lot here in the last couple of months. I have a list of probably like 20, but I wanted to start just that one.
Oh man, there's so many ones that I haven't heard of yet.
Quirkle is once again one of those that I saw on tabletop, and it's simple. The bar for entry is pretty low in terms of age. Yeah, another one I highly recommend.
We gotta get a list going.
I have a handwritten list here.
Oh, you do? Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm
Good,
keeping
good.
track.
Ticket to Ride. We'll do a lightning round. You guys play Ticket to Ride, or introduce your
I
kids?
played Ticket to Ride New York and love it.
Settlers
It's
of
almost
Catan?
identical to the original. I'm sorry, was
I
that?
can never win.
Settlers of Catan.
We've played it. Can't get the family into it, but we may not be doing it 100% correct either.
You're playing it wrong, and that's why it's not fun.
It's a different type of game, and I think it might take somebody having a little bit more knowledge about it to kind of give a new kind of a perspective, or we just watch the episode of Tabletop again, and that might do it. So
Yeah, before I got married, a lot of singles events that I would go to involved games like board games because they were cheap. And when you're a college student and dating, you don't have a lot of money typically, and so board games were a fun way to like have fun with friends and stuff. And I do have to say, when my wife and I were first dating, I didn't know if we would work out, if we would make it, because she is super smart, sciencey, like she wanted to go work for NASA, doing the little tiles on the bottom of the space shuttle, like very very analytical minded, not very creative minded, not a geek at all. I was like, I'm sitting here very creative minded, super nerd geek, and I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna work out. Like, how's this gonna work out? We're two different personalities. How are we gonna do this? And one night we were playing Trivial Pursuit, Lord of the Rings edition, with our friends, and she was demolishing everybody. She was just killing it. And the winning question was like, during such and such a battle, this one person got injured. On what part of his body was he injured? She's like, oh, his left shoulder. And at that moment, I was like, you know what? We're gonna work out. This is gonna work because you're a huge geek. Not for the same things that I am, but that's okay because you can geek out as hard on Lord of the Rings that I do on like Nintendo stuff. So this is gonna work. This is gonna be okay. And it was a very defining moment in our relationship, which was brought to you by Trivial Pursuit, Lord of the Rings edition.
it's a good sponsorship plug.
Yeah, yeah.
Are there any games that have not worked out well with the family, or ones that you just personally kind of despise?
We used to have a weekly game night with our friends back before kids got to be too much. And there was one, the House on Haunted Hill, or Haunted House on the Hill.
Is it Betrayal?
Betrayal, yes, that one. Betrayal at
I've
the
got that
House
one.
on the Hill.
Something like
Which
that.
I've never played. I just know the name.
I've got that
Yeah,
one.
super fun game, but oh my gosh, every time we played that, we lost.
Yeah.
No
it's
matter
hard.
what we did, play it, lose, play it, lose, play it, lose. We got to the point where we're like, do we want to play this again? Is this fun? We know we're gonna lose, and it kind of petered out because it was so hard that we couldn't win.
Yeah, the one game that stands out to me was the Gears of War board game.
There was a Gears of War board game. I didn't know that.
There was, and there, yeah,
Oh.
I don't think they make it anymore. Apparently, it's like a super collector's item because they don't make it anymore, and they're like some super hardcore fans of it that will snatch it up at a moment's notice. And apparently, there's even a expansion card set to like enhance the game even further that is worth some money too. And apparently, I have that one. I have both. They were like things that Epic kind of just gave out to employees or whatever at the time. And so apparently I can get some money for this thing. And I've considered doing it, selling it a couple times because that game is friggin' hard and so complicated. Like, I remember taking it over to my buddy Pete's house and we're like, hey, we're going to play this new board game. Awesome. And he's like the board game guru kind of thing. And we sat there for like, it seemed like hours of him just like referencing, keep going back, referencing the manual. Like, okay, we're at this stage. What do you do? Da, 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 da. You gotta take cover in the wall. It was like, it was as complicated as Gears of War. And like every element that's in the game, you're like rolling for and doing all these things. I might like it more now if I revisited it, if I actually wanted to take the time to get back into it. But that was not a good experience, the one that I had. I might as well just played the actual game because we played like 3 times and just got curb stomped, basically literally curb stomped in the game because there's like executions that the enemy can do to you.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, it was bad.
This game comes with a medical bill.
Yeah.
Your one of my favorite video games of all time was Civilization. And years ago, they came out with a board game, a Civilization board game. I think there's another edition that came out years later, but this is the original one that I'm referencing. And this is probably mid to late 90s. And the board game at that time was $50, which is a lot of money for a board game in the late 90s. And I think I saved up for it and bought it. And I think we tried playing it once and never opened it again because it was that complicated and convoluted. The box probably weighed like 10 pounds because of all the different resource things you have to put on the board. It kind of reminds me of Settlers of Catan a little bit. It might have even predated Catan. I'm not exactly sure. But it'd be like Catan if Catan was 10 times more complicated and convoluted. And I
Like Warhammer. Have you guys played Warhammer?
I've always wanted to try, but no, never. With the actual figurines, the figures.
Oh yeah.
I have not played. I wanted to though, because it looks like such fun. I think I don't know.
Yeah, there was a huge game store that used to be here. It was a tabletop game store. They've since shut down, which is kind of unfortunate. But they had an entire room dedicated to Warhammer, and oh my gosh, the tables were so awesome. Because the people that built these things built like terrains and mountains and rivers and like battlefields, all this other kind of stuff that each campaign could bring their own little figures and do it one time. And I remember going and trying to play with them one night, and I was just like, I can't do this. I can't do this. It's like you're coming into a novel, a 1,000-page novel halfway through, and you don't understand who the characters are, what's going on, how everything needs to work. But that said, the artistry in Warhammer is just next level. Amazing. Even some like Dungeons and Dragons stuff nowadays is getting pretty awesome. Pretty hardcore.
Are there any games that you wanted to try but have not had the opportunity to yet, or just haven't bought the game to try?
At least for me, there's a lot of games that I think are too adult to play with the family.
Cards Against Humanity?
Yeah, like Cards Against Humanity, Exploding Kittens, Bears versus Babies.
No, Exploding Kittens, there's a safe version. There's 2 versions. There's a NFC,
there is?
Yeah, not safe for work version, which is like the original. And there's a kid version, or a safe for work version.
Well, there's also an exploding minions now too, for the kids.
And there's an imploding kittens. That's the expansion. There's like a billion expansions now. But yeah, there's a version that I have that has no anything objectionable in it, and the kids love it.
Yeah.
Especially if you mix in imploding kittens because they have there's that. Have you guys ever played that expansion for that game?
Yeah, I have them all.
They have like one of the what do you call it? The lampshade collars for like
The Cone of Shame.
the cone of shame. They have a cone of shame for a player in that game. If there's a player in the game that doesn't know whose turn it is, or something like that, they immediately get that and they have to wear it and play the game with the cone of this cardboard gigantic cone of shame on for the rest of the game, I think, or at least that round, and it's hilarious. Yeah, so go back to your list. So you can get that game, just seek it out.
I mean, those are the ones that I can think of
Yeah.
off the top of my head.
Apparently, there's a kid version of Cards Against Humanity now too. I think I saw at Target. That I was
Yeah,
like,
there
I
is.
was like,
There's all
really?
different variations now.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter because even if you look at what game was it, Apples to Apples, which is a kind of like an early version of like Cards Against Humanity, you can still play that in a way that sounds dirty. So that all depends on the personalities of the people at the table.
Oh yeah, Apples to Apples. I forgot about that game.
How about Scrabble?
See,
You
I'm
guys
sitting
play
here-
that much?
Scrabble?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Scrabble. Kids like it.
Apparently, I've built up a
Banana
reputation.
Scrabble is really cool.
That is a good one. Wait, it's
Yeah.
called. Is that what it's called? I thought it was called something else.
Isn't it called?
Is it like come in a
It's just
banana
Scrabble.
shaped bag?
Yeah, it comes in a little banana bag.
It's got a different name. I forget what it's called though.
We used to have it. My kids lost most of the pieces, so we got rid of it.
There's a traditional game besides Quirkle that my family and I play a lot called Tile Rummy. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it. It's a fairly old game, but
Rummy?
Tile Rummy. It's kind of I guess it's like a spiritual relation or like cousin to dominoes in a way. You have colors and you have numbers where you can do sets or like runs of them. And one of the more appealing things about it is what you can do on the table in terms of mixing things around and constantly changing the game board. And while I was in North Carolina, my wife brought the game over to my in-laws who don't usually play games, but they got super into it and they want to go out and buy it now just because they liked it. And it is an interesting problem-solving type of scenario for kids once they're at a point where they can kind of think a little bit more critically that way, which I think Wes, your kids I think are just about there, and Donovan, yours are probably almost there too.
I can try it out. I'm always willing to try stuff with my kids.
And it's simply just about matching and making sure that numbers are in order. So I mean, the bar for getting set up is kind of low, but being able to think a little bit abstractly of how you could change the board to fit the pieces that you need to play is where the challenge really happens for everybody.
You guys ever made your own games?
Me, no. I've
did
always
for-
wanted to,
Yeah,
just never got around to it.
I did for assignments, but they were not very good. I can admit that.
It was part of your education.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it would be really fun to make like a maker version of a game where you take like all of us, like recognizable people within the maker community, and like put them in a game that everybody knows just to give like a maker spin of it. Because there's like a bajillion different monopolies. There's like OU Monopoly,
simplest
this
thing
Monopoly, that Monopoly.
Would be to make a Guess Who's version with makers.
Ooh.
And I don't know why that sounds familiar to me.
Does your person have a beard? No.
It's Donovan.
I think that's great. I think that's great.
Or
No,
April
because
Wilkerson,
I
one
mean,
of the two.
there's a lot of really talented women in the makerspace too. So I would at least be in that category, I guess.
It'd be like 500 faces on that board. Have you any games that you have not that you want to maybe play or pick up that you haven't yet, or you haven't had the chance to?
Um,
And I say that very specifically because some it's just a matter of spending the money to buy the game. But with some others, it's really about being in a situation with others and having the time to play it. So like, Warhammer, I think is an opportunity type game because, there's an entry fee for the cost, but also being around other people. Even like a lot of the miniature games I think are that way.
Well, there's a game that we have played that I haven't played in a long time and can't have a difficult time bringing myself to play, if that counts.
Which
Pandemic.
I almost bought it the other day and I didn't just because of.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and it was one that
I
we
heard.
played as much. We played that one as much as we played Codenames in our household. In the other family that we spent a lot of time with, we would play games a lot together, and that was one that we would always play. And there's like tons of expansions. It's like really well designed. Pandemic hit. I have not played it since. Because it's just too real. Like there's like stuff that happens with the CDC, and there's like different strains, and like we've heard so much of this that it's just there's like no appeal of playing it, which is silly, but yeah, we're playing.
Yeah,
it
I
right
just
now.
bought it.
You did? It's fun. I should.
It's $16 on Amazon for anybody that's
I
keeping
should
track
shut
of
up and play
prices
it
here.
again. It's pretty good. The design is really good, but I haven't been able to bring myself to do it and convince others to do it. That's the other trick, because it's only but so fun by yourself. And that's a game that it's really easy to lose in. So you have to have like teammates and stuff that get good cards.
It's a cooperative, right?
Yeah, cooperative. Yep, completely cooperative.
Yeah, that's one of the styles of games that I'm trying to look for more.
Yeah.
For the family. I think competition is important,
Yep.
but I also like the idea of being able to cooperate for a common goal, which is the main goal of The Last Defense, which I've talked about several times on the show already, but
Yeah.
since we're actually talking about those types of games now.
The
That's why I
Marvel game that
recommend
I
it.
mentioned earlier is also cooperative too.
Oh, cool. Legendary, you said?
Legendary, yeah. It's like a 90% cooperative, and there's like an element at the end where each person tallies up their like number of enemies they've killed, and there's like the ultimate winner or whatever. But I don't really care about that part, and you can even disregard it, or it depends how much weight you put on that, status of winning. But 95% of the game is working together and like figuring out like how to tag team like different enemies and who to attack first and different things like that. It's pretty good. You're
You know
muted.
what? Kickstarter.
Good.
I think I blame Kickstarter in all these new games.
Why is that?
Well, I think this is just an observation. I think the popularity of Kickstarter, people getting their unique games funded on Kickstarter, and then those games going mainstream, and then other people seeing that it's possible to take a game and put it into the mainstream. Because I think Exploding Kittens
It was.
started on Kickstarter, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like I kind of think those two things are related in the proliferation of board games on Kickstarter and what my target looks like now. Because it is a whole section.
Yeah.
It is an entire, like, you go to men's clothing, you can go to like groceries, you can go to board games. It's a whole section because of how many there are.
Yeah, and they would often have the sales where you get like buy two get one free for like games, and used to only apply to video games, but in the last couple of years they've expanded it to include board games as well, which is fantastic.
It actually makes me really happy to see that part of the store growing and getting new life now, and probably I would say probably starting more with our generation of looking back and starting to play these games again and then sharing with them with our kids. Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah.
Is there any game that does? Well, I think we maybe mentioned it that you loved as a kid that doesn't hold up anymore. Either it might be maybe because it's too juvenile, or just your memory, like the nostalgia, rose-colored glasses, is like changing it, or they have a distinct memory of. The one thing that comes to mind is the game Operation. I have distinct. I might have talked about this before. I think I have, but the original Operation that I had, the old school ones, it would take like 2 C or D batteries, I think, to power it, and it would terrify me to play that game because the shaking and the buzzer was like so jolting that it would scare me. Like when I was like 5 or 6 playing it, and so it was like super intense. You're like got the little tweezers, and you got like the breadbasket thing, or the butterflies in the stomach, or like a writer's cramp, and all the different things, and you're trying to get it really carefully, and it's like so obnoxiously, terrifyingly loud. And then you buy the modern version, and it's got like 2 AA batteries. It's got an LED light that barely comes on. The motor in there is like the weakest possible thing. And I was excited to have my kids play it. We have the original one, or the modern original, and then we have like a BB-8 version as well. And it's so wimpy. It doesn't have any of the like psychological trauma that I was hoping to impart on my kids with that game. It was a little disappointing. And also they have like really easy things too. Now they have like these like jelly. They're not all rigid pieces. Some of them are like mucusy kind of squishy ones. And so they have like snot in the nose or they have some other kind of gross out kind of elements in it. It's not just all like puns on, body parts and stuff. That's a little disappointing. It's kind of easy, but yeah, this is the thing that comes to mind. I actually want to. This is an idea for a project I wanted to do, is try to. I don't know what the best way to describe it. Kind of like how MythBusters would take like an idea, they would test it, and then they would like MythBusterize like the thing to make it like over the top. I want to do that to a modern operation game and make it like super gruesome and very loud. Like when they're playing it, like it just starts spurting blood and spewing everywhere, like they hit a vein or something, to make it equally traumatizing, if not more traumatizing, than the original. That's one of my dreams, right there.
I think Operation and Perfection are responsible for like 80% of all childhood anxiety.
Or Perfection.
Perfection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember getting stressed out playing that game.
That's what I mean. That's why I said that.
That's
I
true.
remember.
And then if you don't, regardless if you get it, if you don't get it in time, then it explodes in your face.
Childhood trauma in a box.
Let's not get into even like the mousetrap thing where no one even actually played the game correctly. It was always just doing the Rube
Never
Goldberg.
knew how to play it.
Yeah, who cares? It was like,
Does anybody know how to play that game?
I don't think so.
No, but seeing a life-size version of Maker Faire was always fun.
Yup.
Yeah.
Because then it wasn't a game anymore. It was life or death.
I do like board games. I'm glad I married someone that likes board games and that we have kids that, it's memory building fodder. It's it's fun. Don't break the ice.
That's one of my favorites.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good one. I forgot about that
Again,
one.
as a kid, I loved it. As an adult, it's stupid. But as a kid,
I only played it as an adult. My kids had it.
Yeah.
And it's not for me, so. I mean, not for an adult.
Do you guys remember like Ants in Your Pants? Remember that one?
Uh-huh.
It's basically beer pong for kids, isn't it?
I don't remember the game. I just remember being accused of having them.
It's like, I think if I remember correctly, they're like plastic pants that are like super wide open, and then you have like these little
You
flick them. They're like
ants, right?
spring-loaded legs. Yeah. It's like beer pong, but for children.
And you try and get the ants in the pants.
And there's like Don't Wake Daddy. You remember that one when we were kids coming out?
I remember the commercial.
The commercial, yeah. I don't remember the gameplay. I never had it, but I remember the commercial. Saturday morning.
Barrel of Monkeys? Was that a game, or was that just a barrel of? It was a game.
I thought it was a toy. I didn't even know it had rules.
Cooties, yes, Cooties. That was the other one.
Cooties.
I remember.
Cooties.
Cooties. Yeah,
Cooties.
Cooties.
Rock'em Sock'em Robot. You guys ever did that one?
I never had it. I think I had friends that had it.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those that, once again, didn't really have a long shelf life, either because it broke,
Yeah.
or just, interest was probably just like an afternoon.
Sure. Simon. I mean, that's electronic. I guess it's not really a board game, but I think of
Which
it.
one?
Simon.
Oh, yeah, Simon Says.
Yeah.
I think, it's one of the few that probably had batteries that way, but I think it still kind of applies as like a family game where you sit around and try to do that.
Twister. I don't care about that one.
The what one?
Twister.
Oh no.
Oh, that was fun when I was in my early 20s and dating.
Right, I was gonna say. I don't know. I'm trying to think of some other classic ones
Yeah.
that we haven't mentioned.
I mean, I know that we do this like for a really long time. Do you have any distinct memories playing any one specific game growing up? Just it's kind of like stuck in your memory. I could talk about one to kind of start when before my brothers were born, because I mentioned before that I'm 10 years older. I was pretty much surrounded by adults. So I had my parents who were married, and I had my aunt and uncle, and we'd get together every week and they'd play games. It's kind of weird how it kind of fell off after, but we played Pictionary. There was a VHS version of Clue that we played, but the one that I remember playing was charades, just because that was the only time the family ever played it and they never touched it again. And it was, I think it was considered kind of like a new thing in the 80s. And just seeing my dad trying to act something out was pretty memorable because he's not a very physical person that way.
I would say
Oh,
mine is
man.
is Operation. I kind of already hit that.
Yeah.
That's definitely memorable for good and bad reasons.
There was, I cannot remember the game, but there was a board game that had a VHS tape with it that you had to like play the
There's a
tape.
couple different ones. Clue was one of them.
Yeah, it wasn't Clue. For the life of me, I can't remember what it was, but I remember it was it was a young adult activity one night. We tried playing that game and got so frustrated because we couldn't figure out what was going on because it's like something got out of sync between like the gameplay and the video because you had to like rewind or go back or something like that, and it was so. For the life of me, I can't remember the game or the name of the game. And it's funny because they on Community, my wife and I rewatched Community lately, and they did that in one of the episodes where they played the little the VHS game. And I was like, I don't remember it being as fun as that looks. Yeah. Have we tapped out
I
that?
think so.
I think
topic?
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could go on for hours of naming off games, but the
Good stuff.
yeah,
I think with all this, I think we've provided enough ideas for people to try to get their kids into it, or maybe reinvigorate their love for games.
Yeah, I think we'll try to find a way to post maybe each of our like top 5 to play with the family
Mm-hmm.
or something. That way, there's something to kind of take away from the episode a little bit more as well.
Boss Monster. That is
That card game.
That is a good geek game, I think. I really enjoy that one. We haven't mentioned
Is that like is that like Super Fight?
I don't know. It's a deck building game where you have to like build up your characters and then you fight a boss and the boss does things. Kind of it sounds kind of similar to the Marvel game that you were saying.
Yeah.
Cuz that's a deck building game
Yeah.
too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It sounds similar to that, but it's all like classic Nintendo retro properties. Not direct.
Right. They're
They
all
do, like,
influenced by. Yeah.
Yeah, they do parodies of
Yeah.
like Metroid and Mario and like
Mhm.
Kid Icarus and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that's another really good one.
If you ever want a fist fight to break out with your kids, have them play Munchkin too. That's it's cooperative up to a certain point, and then it's like one of the most brutal games ever.
Yep, stab each other in
Super
the back.
cutthroat. Yeah.
Yep. So, other than being nostalgic about certain games, what are you guys geeking out about this week?
What if the Marvel show?
What if? That's right.
Yeah, it's coming
Did
out
that
Comes
come out
out
next week.
next week, though. Yeah,
Next
August 11th, I think, is the release
They've
date.
been releasing a lot of little snippets and trailers and teasers and stuff, and it looks like it's going to be pretty awesome. I already had high hopes for it, but even more so with all the multiverse stuff that's been introduced.
I'm geeking out about something related to what we talked about today, in a way. and that's on Dungeons and Dragons. After the trip to North Carolina and talking with Josh and Nicole from Geeks Craft, um, I'm taking the plunge and we're gonna start doing a campaign with the kids.
And watching
And
Stranger Things
I've
too.
oh,
Yeah.
actually, yeah, that had a big influence too. I've had this I think it's the starter kit or something for like 2 years, and I'd opened the instructions one day and it just like seemed so overwhelming. But I've been reading a little bit every day, and I might be doing a modified start with the kids, just kind of a role playing practice, I think, to get them into the headspace of it. And I think within the next month we'll be starting our first campaign, and there's even interest to start a club at work with the students. So I don't know if maybe I'll just DM for that.
It's pretty
I'm more
progressive.
interested in being yeah, I'm more interested in being a dungeon master than a player. So we'll see how that goes. I'll report back.
Because then you can like 3D print everything.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, that'd be cool. Amazon just released their first, I guess, screenshot from the Lord of the Rings series. And oh my gosh, it looks so cool.
I didn't want to like it.
You didn't
I
want to
didn't
like
want
it.
to like it. No.
I know. And they're like, if you haven't seen it, like look it up. It's gorgeous. Because we don't know who is standing in frame, or I don't know if they said what city she's looking over.
I'm pretty sure it's
But
Minas Tirith.
is that Minas? That's
It
not
looks
Minas
like
Tirith.
it.
Oh, yeah, it kind of looks like it. But the two trees of Valinor are like way off in the background, and I'm just like, oh, so excited. But they finally announced when the series is going to be released, September 2022.
That's actually a lot sooner than I thought it would be.
I know, I know.
So let me ask you guys a quick question. Have you guys read The Lord of the Rings?
Mhm.
I never have, and I was just wondering, how different do you think this show is going to be? Because it's still the same story, or are they going to be taking a lot more creative liberties with it?
Uh, I think a lot of it is going to be based on the compendium,
Oh,
which is like all of the extra
oh
stories
no,
of
I
Middle
know what
Earth.
that I know what that is. Yeah.
And they keep talking about the Silmarillion. I don't think a lot of it is going to be based on the Silmarillion. I think it's more going to be based on like the compendium, and that apparently they just published like other stories of Middle Earth. His son collected a bunch of unpublished writings and published a book called The Untold Stories of Middle Earth, or something like that. I don't know how much of it is going to be taken from that, but it's definitely a prequel to the Lord of the Rings. So there's a lot to there's a lot that they can draw from, although yeah, a lot of it I think is going to be creative liberty. I just hope they don't Game of Thronesify
That's what it
Middle
sounds
Earth.
like.
I heard rumors that they were going to, which seems like the estate wouldn't allow something like that.
Yeah, but they did spend what $2 billion on the rights to do it, or something like that, some insane number.
Well, I think that includes the production cost.
Oh, does it?
I think so. I'm pretty
God.
sure.
Regardless, I'm excited for it. I'll at least watch the first episode, as long as it's not Game of Thronesified. So that's what I'm geeking out about at the moment.
Wes, you got it?
Yep. Let's see. I want to mention one more thing I'm geeking out about. Just a little tiny one.
All right.
Okay.
Did you guys know that there was a Kangaroo the Conqueror? Did you guys know this? You ever heard of that? I never heard of that before. Apparently,
No.
it's like a whole like another Earth in the Marvel verse that it's like all animal based. And I wonder if the Loki alligator Loki is like similar to that, or if it's in the same vein. I haven't educated myself on it yet, but there's there was a reference in one of the videos I watched talking about Marvel stuff, and it just looks awesome. There's there's an issue of the comics called Ultimate FF, Volume 1, episode or issue 5 or something. It's like a Future Foundation is the it's like an alternative multiverse spin-off of the Fantastic Four, basically, from what I understand. And Spider-Ham is like in it. So if you think Spider-Ham, how they like did an animal spin-off of Spider-Man, there's other animal characters in here. They have the Hulk Bunny, they have Mooster Fantastic, they have Quacksilver, Kangaroo the Conqueror, they have Galactopus, which is a platypus and Galactus mixed together, and that's on the cover, and it looks friggin' awesome. They have Doctor Doom. What's some other ones that I want to mention? Green Gobbler, Iron Ham, Squawk Eye, and like there's so many hilarious ones. They even what's the other one? Captain Americat, which is just funny. Anyways, look that up if you're into some like weird Marvel stuff. And if you're not into weird Marvel stuff, or you want to talk about weird Marvel stuff, you can actually do that on our Discord server. Do you guys know we had a Discord server for our patrons? We do. If you head over to patreon.com/makinggeeks, you can become a part of that exclusive club, which actually got a little bit more expanded today. Side note, I actually added Geeksmithing patrons to the Making Geeks Discord server. So I'm hopefully going to add in you other guy, like Once Upon a Workbench patrons and also Geek Builders patrons have like a Making Geeks family of server kind of thing. Like, I think that'd be kind of a neat idea, and I'm sort of working towards that, and we've off to a good start. Thank you to our top patrons that make that happen with their top contributions, including Square Splinter. That is the topmost donation, but also the other ones include Clinton and Jordan. Thank you guys so much for your donations and contributions. We appreciate each and every one of you.
Yeah, that list of patrons is growing. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
And something else you could do is you could communicate with us directly about the show on our website, makinggeeks.com. We have a contact page that is primarily set up for any recommendations for the show or any comments about any of the episodes. And speaking of episodes, you can listen to all of our past episodes on the homepage of the site. And don't forget that we also have a store with some merch right there on makinggeeks.com.
And I know we talked a lot about different board games tonight, but if you have board games that we missed or forgot about, or that you know the secret awesome sauce of whatever board game that we need to play, go ahead and send us a message. You could do it individually if you want to. Sean, you can find over at Geek Builders. Wes, you can find at Geeksmithing. And myself, you can find at Once Upon a Workbench.
And you can find new episodes of the show every Saturday on your podcast player of choice. I want to thank everybody in the live chat for joining us. It always makes the show a lot more fun and enjoyable having that live dialogue and conversation going on behind the scenes here. So from all of us to all of you, have a great week.
See ya.
Later, everybody.
Take care.